Chael, how you doing with the long day?
I'm on the grind, man. I don't care about time. I don't run on blood or oxygen. I'm a Republican.
And that is why you are Chael P. Sonnen, and we are excited to have you here. Let's talk about this press conference. We're taping this on a Wednesday. You and I were both there, watching intently. Pretty low energy affair in my description. How would you describe what happened today?
I would describe it as the cure for insomnia. It was awful. It was boring. It was a huge miss, and it was a miss by Floyd. Conor showed up ready to play. Floyd controlled the tempo, and a fight. A press conference, they're both dances, and only one person can lead. And Conor surprisingly let Floyd lead, and he just took it down a notch. And we were all left just thinking, man, did Floyd get shot with a tranquilizer dart, or is he just trying to annoy everybody? It was a huge mess. And I say it for this reason because there's multiple interpretations of this, and I think in fairness, Floyd came off as a real gentleman. He came off as a real sportsman, and I'll remind you, Brett, that's where his career started. He started as an amateur. There was no money. There was no Money Mayweather, the money team. It was none of these things. There was nobody watching. There's no notoriety. It wasn't for his ego. It wasn't for his bank account. He was just a hungry young athlete trying to get a pat on the back from his father and his uncle and chasing a goal. And as he came, back around to tonight, his final press conference of his career, it seemed as though maybe he went back to those roots of just being a sportsman and being humble and being appreciative for opportunities. So there's multiple interpretations of it, but I was there for entertainment, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, especially the part when you mentioned, because the question is why? Why was this so a low-energy affair? I think we can all agree to that, and I think you are correct in that we got to remember that this is Floyd's last press conference. He has stated that this is his last fight. I believe him, and he almost seemed to be getting a little emotional out there. He thanked his family, and Conor definitely was fine allowing him to do that. And do you think, looking back, that Conor is frustrated by that? Do you think Conor is sitting at his house right now talking about how the day went and he feels like he messed up, that he should have tried to seize control, or is that difficult to do in those circumstances?
I think that he probably let it go. Conor's got a couple of battles in front of him. Floyd only has one. Floyd just has to fight 12 rounds under the Queensberry rules on Saturday night, but Conor has to make weight, and that is a significant difference. So, no, Conor's calendar is a little bit booked up. He's got to get through Friday's weigh-in and then, try to refocus and rehydrate and regroup and go into the big one on Saturday. So, no, I don't think he's kicking himself, but, he did allow Floyd to handle that, and I think it was probably the right thing to do. When one guy isn't fighting back and you're standing up there shouting at him and cursing and calling him names, it's going to be a little bit weird. So I think he made the same adjustments that I would if I was in his shoes. It's just, look, don't forget, these guys are business partners, and they've got a dispute, and they're going to settle it on August 26th at T-Mobile. But until then, they were in business together, and it was a miss by Floyd. And I think business is still going to be great. It's not like they were counting on some press conference that they didn't even allow the fans into, but for what it was, and since that's what we're talking about, it was a miss.
Let me ask you this, because I know that a lot of other people have had this question, and you are looked at as one of the best promoters in the fight game. Did it surprise you that during this entire buildup, Conor did not really go after the domestic violence issue? Because when the fight was first announced, a lot of people figured he would use that card at some point. And other than just a couple quick mentions of it, mostly when he was getting the accusations of the racism, he never really brought it up. Did that surprise you at all?
It was very unfair when Floyd attempted to pile on the racism. Very unfair. I was disappointed in Floyd for doing that. I think the time for the domestic violence, one, maybe to defend yourself against something as ugly as the claim we just discussed, but two, that's when you're trying to pick a fight. When you're trying to get a fight, maybe you get down in the gutter like that. You do whatever it takes to get those contracts signed. But once they're signed, you got to let that go. That was a legal matter that's been settled a very long time ago. So long ago, I read all about it, watched it on TV, and can't remember what happened. It was that long ago. But yeah, I mean, if they're looking to get in the gutter, I suppose that it's fair game. But there's other ways to sell and promote this fight. So I would encourage him not to take the low-hanging fruit. If you want to have a level of intelligence or be known as a good promoter, you've got to show a little bit of wit and not just take the obvious balls. But it was a dirty thing that Mayweather tried to do to Conor with that race talk. I'm glad that blew over because that wasn't fair to do to a guy.
Yeah, the race thing came up again actually on ESPN today. I was driving over to the radio station here in Vegas. I was listening to local sports radio, and they were actually playing audio of Mike Wilbon on Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, and they were discussing the betting of this fight and how it's so lopsided in favor of, they're writing 12 tickets for McGregor for every one that they're writing for Floyd, and of course the money coming in on Floyd is much greater. Guys are coming in, sharps are coming in, waiting for the line to go down and dropping a whole lot of money to win a little bit of money. And then there's all the dreamers out there that are putting some money and hoping that McGregor can pull it off, and then they get to cash in a big ticket. What Wilbon said, however, is that that's only a small part of it. He believes that white people are betting on McGregor, and that there's that great white hope storyline into this, and that's illustrated by the betting line. And I thought that was interesting. They had an interesting discussion of it here on the local sports radio, and it got me thinking I would get your take on it. What do you think when you hear Wilbon's take on that?
I've never heard of such a thing. I don't think you could meet a single person where that was the case. If he has that opinion, though, maybe he's got some data to support it. I can tell you my only data is I have never met anybody where that's the case. And as far as the Great White Hope goes, is there such a thing? I know there was a movie called that, but I've never counted on some white guy for boxing. I hear the people talk about Rocky Marciano, but I didn't live through that, man. I cheered for Sugar Ray Leonard and Mike Tyson. Those were my idols and still are. So, I never thought of them as black, though, either. So I don't know anything about this black or white when it comes to fighting. I just know I like Sugar Ray's hand speed and I like Tyson's ferociousness. So that was good enough to get my ticket.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think most of these people are betting on McGregor because they like to think about placing $10 to win 50 rather than placing 50 to win 5. That's just sort of how.
Brett, hey, I'll tell you that. I don't mean to cut you off, but the other side of it is, Brett, people don't know fighting, and they shouldn't. Fighting is a very weird thing, even though I am a fighter. I will admit that's a strange thing to go into. It's a strange thing that my father took me to a gym, paid dues, knowing I was going to get beat up every day.
Yeah.
And most people haven't been in a fight ever, even on the playground, and that's a good thing. They shouldn't be. But I will hear people putting their hard-earned money on some of the biggest myths in fighting, reach advantage, even though throughout history you could not show me a guy with super long arms that did really good in boxing because of it. I'll hear people talk about the weight. Every example I could provide you, weight and being bigger in a fight is a disadvantage unless you're grappling. The greatest strikers are always lighter. Mike Tyson never had a weight advantage or reach for that matter. Literally never, none, zero. Muhammad Ali did have a reach advantage, did not have a weight advantage. In his prime, he was 198 pounds, not even 200 pounds when he won the Olympic gold medal for the United States. So people just don't know what they're talking about. And then they talk about age. Listen, man, when I was a senior in high school, there wasn't a second grader in all the lands that I had to worry about. But at some point, there's a tipping point, and the older guy, it's at his disadvantage. Go ask Canelo how much youth helped him against Floyd. And you could just go down the list one by one by one, and ultimately you could get down to that fake belt that fat guy stood up and tried to present to everybody like he was Ted DiBiase with that.
It was a nice belt in his defense.
Fake belt.
Alligator skin, lots of sapphires and emeralds. It was a nice belt. Come on, give him that.
Excuse me. That belt did not cost $100, and I could show you the website where I have to buy belts. I am a promoter. That belt's not worth $100. He comes out, he claims it's got 2 kilos of solid gold and 139 diamonds. I heard the whole thing too. That belt is sitting in the MGM Grand. I just did interviews down there. It was down there for 60 minutes unattended with no security around it. That's a fake belt, and don't let the fans be fooled. These guys are not fighting for a belt. There is no title on the line, and they jumped the shark by bringing that thing out.
Yeah. Yeah. In 3 days, does this fight sell more pay-per-views than Mayweather-Pacquiao?
Yeah, okay, so let's be real fair about that too, Brett. First off, Mayweather and Pacquiao is said to be the biggest fight of all time at $4.4 million. I've heard all the same stuff that you've heard. I perpetrated it the same way that you perpetrated, but neither of us and nobody else has any actual data to support that. DirecTV did not co-sign any of those numbers. Neither did Dish Network and neither did Time Warner. That fight did $4.4 million and goes down as the biggest fight of all time because the person that put out the press release on Monday morning, 2 days after the fight, said it did $4.4 million. There is absolutely no supporting data to that. So if this fight wants to go down as the biggest fight in all time, all they have to do on Monday morning is send out a press release that said it did over 4.4, and we'll all perpetrate it. None of us have actually thought to ask who supplied those numbers.
No, I always just figured that every press release ever written was 100% honest, true.
Everybody just figures Pacquiao and Mayweather They did not do 4.4 million. No fight in history's done 4.4 million. This fight won't do 4.4 million, but they will probably come out and say it did 5.
Chael, we're going to go real quick. True or false on a few of these, okay? The fight goes over 8.5 rounds. That's the total that Vegas has. True or false?
I'm going to go false.
Okay. McGregor fights 5 more times in his career, whether it be boxing or MMA.
False.
Wow. Less than 5 times we see this guy in a ring or an octagon again.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, don't forget, I mean, he said some stuff at the press conference today. He was talking about he was going to start his own promotion company. If there's one thing that fighters love to do, it's go broke. Conor McGregor is not a smart guy. He's a dum-dum with a cool accent that looks great in a suit and's got pretty good fighting skills. He should put the gloves on and leave the thinking to Dana White. But if he does jump into the promotion business, he will be broke, and in that case, he will have to keep fighting.
McGregor fights again this year. True or false?
False.
When McGregor fights again, his opponent will be Nate Diaz, his first opponent back in the UFC.
I like that. I can't, that's a hard one to say, but I'm going to say true on that. I'm going to say true on that because Conor did say that. He did a thing with Errol. He said that. I mean, guys say things all the time, change their mind, but I'm going to go true.
Yeah, he's always said that he wants, even before he defeated Diaz in the rematch, he said, I'm going to win the rematch. There will be a third one. It does seem like something almost from a competitive standpoint that he's always seemed interested in, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I really admire that in him. But I really admire that in him because he's really the new breed fighter, even his style. He really is a new breed. There's nobody doing it. He is futuristic for his time with his style, but he's a real traditionalist at respecting the history of sports. And yes, when guys go 1-1, you go to the rubber match. That's what history says. And I really admire that he does that because he means that. He knows the rules, man. It's one apiece. You got to settle it. I respect that.
Yep, I agree. Another one, true or false, McGregor's relationship with the UFC and his purse demands after making all the money on the Mayweather fight becomes one of the biggest stories of 2018.
Oh, definitely false. Yeah, nobody cares. That's been out for a while.
Yeah, but where do you stand on the whole, Conor's going to make all this money, how is he going to go back to MMA and make far less money? Where do you stand on that question?
Well, he might be able to do something. I mean, that's the way that it goes. That works in life that way, too. I mean, I had that same thing in MMA. I did just over $8 million to fight Anderson the second time, and I did just over $6 million to fight Jones after that. So, I mean, it's not the same. And you can go, well, it's a world title, and it's just as tough, and we're going to sell it. Man, it's not the same. Business is business, and particularly when guys are cut in on the pay-per-view, the way that's structured, I mean, it's just simple numbers. You get a calculator out, and a guy gets a check cut. And I got significantly less than both of those to just sell at Madison Square Garden and fight Vanderlei Silva. So, I mean, that's the way it goes. You don't only make more money. You can take your ball and go home, and if you're in this for the money, then maybe that's what you should do. But I think that Conor's going to sit down and talk with him and say, look, I want a few more points here, and we'll see what happens. But he's under a contract, and it's important to honor your contracts. And, the UFC could go with him or go without him, but they'll make that decision based on business, and I don't think anybody's in the wrong there.
Good stuff. One last topic I got to ask you about before we get you out of here, and that is obviously Jon Jones. I think everybody is familiar with what's going on. We still have to wait a little bit, when it comes to, Jones is claiming innocence, and he's going to, it sounds like appeal this and get his B sample tested, all of that stuff. But your initial thoughts on this news that broke yesterday?
I was very surprised. I knew that John was using. I just lived that life too long myself. If a guy takes a T-shirt off, I can take one look at him. I called the Junior before it broke. I called the John before it broke. However, when I say I was surprised, I just assumed coming off the suspension, having the money he's got and the connections he's got, brothers in the NFL, what have you, I thought, well, he must have found a way to manipulate the test. He must have found something that isn't on the ban list yet. I never thought it would have been a dirty, rotten steroid. You have to understand there's banned substances, and then there's illegal substances. That steroid he's found with is a Class C felony. They would put you in handcuffs for that. It is against the law to be in possession of. So that did stun me a little bit. And I can also tell you from having lived that life, you only have to answer for the things you're caught for, but you never caught for everything you did. So, he got away with a number of things, I would suspect, but he's going down on Tremopol. And so, I mean, it is what it is. It's Jon Jones. And, The cover-up is always worse than the crime. Right now, he needs to go into PR mode. He needs to choose one of two strategies. One, bury your head and say nothing ever. It worked for Brock Lesnar. He just went through it. He's still on a suspension, and he main evented a pay-per-view on Sunday night. So that's one strategy. The other is come as clean as you can, as quickly as you can. Here's what I did. Here's why I did it. That is not going to happen when you're dealing with a sociopath that's going to hold the Bible up above his head and claim, silly me, and I don't know how this happened. You're not going to get that, and he's going to end up, just like he has every other time, he's just going to end up elongating this. It'll go away. It'll blow over. People are starting to get numb to it when it's John Jones. They just start to, oh, yeah, I'm sure he did, and they just kind of move on with their day. But he could get through it a little quicker if he either went silent or he fessed up.
Based on what you said about Turinabol, does it, and it seems like you're very crystal clear on what you think happened with John Jones, but because it's not a substance that you would anticipate him using, especially with the resources that he has available to him, does that make you think even just slightly that him saying, I don't know how this got in my system, is there any wonderment about you that, well, maybe?
No, on a guy's third strike, no, definitely not. And again, I could take one look at him, and I could just throw the fans back as recently as his OSP fight to his Daniel Cormier fight. His body changed significantly. And one thing with the human body is we don't get better with time. So if your body all of a sudden looks better than it used to when you're weighing in at the same weight class as you used to, you've got some explaining to do. And you can fool a lot of the public by saying, I went on a new diet and a new exercise program. But when you're training for world title fights, you're dieting and you're exercising to the top of your ability. So it's same, except the guy's a year older. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, but it would take somebody in the know. And again, I'm an expert on this topic for all of the wrong reasons, but an expert nonetheless. And no, the fact that it was such a lowbrow steroid, I mean, this was still some good stuff. I would put it at probably number 8 on the list of things you could do, but I would put what Anderson Silva popped for at about a number 11 on the list. I mean, there was better stuff. It just strengthens my previous point of what didn't they catch? How many things did get through the system because he's found different ways to do it? That would be my speculation, but I must admit to you it's just that. I know that I'm right. I'm just protecting myself legally, and I'm letting you know I'm speculating, even though I'm not.
Last question on this. Why? Is it as simple as, and that might sound like an obvious question, there's an obvious answer to it, because performance-enhancing drugs, listen to what they're called, performance enhancing. They do great things for you. So that's why you take them. But with John Jones, everything on the line, everything that he had been through, him coming out and being so anti-performance enhancing drugs, if he did cheat, as you suspect he did, as you are speculating that he has done so, well, is it just as simple?
Confirmed. I think a better way to say it is the test, the one before it and one before that, confirmed. But yes, I will speak to what the test said. But go ahead.
Why? Is it just as simple as he didn't think he could beat Daniel Cormier without it? Is it lack of confidence? Is it the rigors
I think it's a little bit of both, Yeah, old habits. Basically, the psychology of it, as flawed as this is, the basic psychology is somebody grabs a hold of you and says, hey, this isn't going to show up. And it's really just as simple as that. You bite down one time, you take that guy's advice, and you pass a test. And John passed 4 or 5 of them, and he's going, okay, I've discovered something they can't catch. And all of a sudden, what he miscalculated is the science changes, and it can change as quick as daily without any kind of a press release or notification. Things can, go undetected for years, and all of a sudden, one Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., a scientist figures out a new way, and they start implementing it. So these guys get jammed up in that all the time, and then love to go, but wait a minute, I wouldn't have taken it this late, and if it didn't show up here, here, and here, and it's like, no, it wasn't tested the same way. They're not armed with enough information because they're not very smart. They're not very smart in the first place. So, yeah, I mean, that's what happened, but you're not going to get clomiphene in a tainted substance, and I know they tried to rule that the last time, but that was as crooked as could be. Clomiphene is so I used to take clomiphene. It's extremely expensive. Nobody's putting that in an over-the-counter sex pill or whatever John had claimed, and now you've got this one, Tremabol. This is another expensive one. It's a Class C felony. Nobody's smuggling this in and putting this into substances. I mean, it's beyond absurd. It was taken intentionally, I believe.
Thank you for your insight, your perspective, Chael. Look forward to seeing you the rest of the week.
You can't get that anywhere else, Brett. No, you can't get what I just gave you anywhere else. All of that was brilliant. I'm so impressed with myself right now, as I'm sure you are. I'll see you tomorrow. Kaboom.